Hi, what's up guys, TSJAwesome 628 here, back again with another F1 2020 My Team Career Mode video, this time for the Monaco Grand Prix, and we're going into it on a 4-race win streak after winning the Spanish Grand Prix last time out. Monaco is generally a stronger track for me than the AI, but last season we had some tyre wear issues there, so we may have to adjust our strategy accordingly to mitigate those issues. We're just going to start off by renewing some of our sponsors as they need renewing. And we end up re-signing with Zanzare, and then I think we're just going to go with like Neon or Sudo here because they both have good goal bonuses and good weekly income, but they also have achievable goals. So just as the goal bonus is slightly higher with Neon, we're going to go with Neon here. So those are our 3 sponsors. I think they're pretty much the best 2 sponsors we can get, so I think that we're basically going to continue with those for the rest of time. Now for the activity timeline, and we're going to start off with a funded team event at home as it just gives us some good things, and then we're going to do the vehicle PR filming, and we don't have enough time to do another activity. So as we move onwards, we're receiving a couple of upgrades to the car, so we're still developing. But we're going to get straight into the weekend of the Monaco Grand Prix. So as we move into the laptop to check the weather forecast, we can see that it is just going to be completely dry this weekend, and there's no rain to worry about. So it should be a straightforward weekend. Obviously the barriers will probably try and say something else, as we could easily get damage at any point during the weekend. But as we move on to the upgrades, because we have 2,400 resource points, so we can afford to purchase a powertrain upgrade for the ERS or fuel, and I decided in the end that I was going to go with a fuel efficiency upgrade, which will arrive in the coming races. We're also going to be able to afford a chassis upgrade for weight reduction, and that's how we're going to spend our resource points. So as we head straight into qualifying, this is our first lap. We're in slightly wide to start our lap, but it shouldn't make too much of a difference, and we should be able to make it through relatively simply. And as we head on further through the lap and towards the end of the lap, we come around the final corner, and it's a decent lap that's a 108.7, which is currently fastest in the session. And as we fast forward towards the end of the session, we end up finishing second behind our teammate Daniel Ricciardo, but safely through to the next session. And as we scroll further down the order, you'll see that the drivers that didn't make it through were indeed both Alfa Romeos, both Williams, Sainz and Perez. So both Haas cars of Grosjean and Russell have made it through to Q2. You don't see this very often, as most of the time it'll be the Haas cars, the Alfa Romeos and the Williams cars that all get knocked out, but they seem to both have a little bit of pace in that car, and they were fighting towards that area. So let's see what they can do in Q2. And unfortunate for Sainz and Perez, who both didn't even do enough to make out a session that most of the time they'd have been expected to make it out. But then, albeit their teammates were only 13th and 14th, so maybe the Renault and McLaren just don't have a good car for this weekend. So we head into Q2 now to start our lap. Again, it should be a session that we are able to make it through quite quickly. I did debate trying to go on the medium tyres, so we could try and maybe do like a medium hard strategy, just because our tyre wear may be quite poor, but I just decided let's go for the quickest tyres. As we come forth at the end of our lap, it's again a 108.7, and as we fast forward towards the end of the session, we don't go fastest because Charles Leclerc on the medium tyres has set a 108.5. And I'm going to question how valid that lap is. So I believe it was one of the glitches where if you simulate through the session, they somehow find a lot of time. Because there's no way Leclerc's that quick on the medium tyres. Otherwise, he should be dominating this Grand Prix. But luckily for him now, he does get to start on those medium tyres. So maybe he'll have a good race because of that. So, joining us in the session along with both Ferraris, both Mercedes, Lance Stroll, Fiat, Albon and Norris. So Giovinazzi and Verstappen don't make it. And Grosjean puts in a great performance to start P12, with Russell starting P15. So the Haas cars maybe do actually have some pace this weekend, and if Grosjean can get the strategy right, or maybe Russell, then one of them could easily squeeze into the points, because we do know how bad the traffic can be at the Monaco Grand Prix. So as we get into Q3, we do have a slight fault with the car on the lubrication system, and that means we're going to have to wait 4 minutes before we can get out for our first lap. But we will be able to get out for our first lap, and I will just about have enough time to get 2 laps in. So as we get through the first lap that we do, it's just a nice banker lap, but it is a 108.1, so 6 tenths quicker than we managed in either Q1 or Q2, and at the moment we're on provisional pole. As we get on towards our second lap, we will try and improve on it and maybe get into the 107s, which would be a very good effort, but we are slightly down as we head through turn 1, so not the best of runs through there. But as we head towards the end of that, we are indeed about 2 tenths up as we head through the final corner, and as we make the run down to the line, we do manage to get inside the 107s, and we do manage to get pole position for the Monaco Grand Prix.
With qualifying finished, it's time to remind ourselves of our top 3. Thomas, Ricciardo and Valtteri Bottas. With qualifying wrapped up, we now have our grid lineup for the big race tomorrow. Be sure to join us then for what will no doubt be a fantastic race.
So we get pole position by 8 tenths over our teammate Daniel Ricciardo, who helps us lock out the front row, and Valtteri Bottas is 3rd. Charles Leclerc does still put it in 4th, so obviously he was 6 tenths slower than his medium time in Q2, so obviously he didn't have that kind of pace, but he still did have decent pace. Hamilton would be P5, with Sebastian Vettel P6, Albon P7, Stroll P8, Norris P9, and Danny Kvyat rounds out the top 10 for tomorrow's race. So let's see whether we can take the win at the race tomorrow.
The fans really seem to enjoy that. Made it look easy. It's always good to qualify at the front, isn't it?
Yeah, it is always great. The chassis department has done very well, so I'm glad that we have a great chassis, and Monaco is probably a chassis circuit. The competition has been good. At the start of the season, we had this battle with Mercedes. Now the competition is mainly kind of for my teammate, but still, we have a good chance this season.
How our starting grid looks for today's race. Thomas lines up on pole position with Daniel Ricciardo slotting in alongside. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Bottas, Leclerc, Lewis Hamilton and Vettel, Albon, Stroll, Norris and Daniel Kvyat, Grosjean, Verstappen, George Russell and Ocon, Sainz, Perez, Nicholas Latifi and Kevin Magnussen, Giovinazzi, De Vries, Gasly, they'll be starting further back after an earlier grid penalty, and Jack Aitken.
So for the strategy for this race, we are going to go with a 2-stop, which is quite risky in Monaco, but I think we'll have the pace to pull it off. And the reason why I don't want to go for the 1-stop, which is just a strategy, is obviously last year we really struggled on it, and we were in a brilliant position, but had to fall back towards the end of the race because our tyres were very, very worn. So hopefully this season it will go better for us, and as a precaution we will go on the 2-stop, which does mean we're going to need to be able to be much quicker than our teammate Ricciardo if we want to in this race, and possibly Leclerc, who could challenge from the mediums on 4th. So as we're going to start the race here, we're going to get a slightly worse start though than Daniel Ricciardo, and he just shoots off into the lead, and we have to settle for P2 as we head through the first few corners. And on the exit of this corner we have a slight wobble, and Bottas is now able to get up our inside, but we're going to brake later and go round the outside and hold the position. And now we're going to need to try and focus on catching up to our teammate Ricardo. Because obviously if we're going to go on the 2-stop, we're going to need to have a lot of pace in this race. So as we push on towards the end of lap 1, the gap to Ricardo is 1.4 seconds, and as we come to the end of lap 2, he's extended it to 1.7 seconds. So we really need to start pushing, but we have brought it back down to about 1.4 seconds at the end of lap 3, and at the end of lap 4 it stays at 1.4 seconds. At the end of lap 5 we're finally in DRS range, so hopefully we'll be able to stick with him and maybe try and make a move on him. Now on board with Sergio Perez here, who sees Russell ahead make a quite big mistake here, but immediately loses the position to the Alfa Romeo behind him, I think of Kevin Magnussen, who is now round the outside of him. But Perez will dive it back up the inside, and as they head through the next section, Magnussen will head round the outside of the swimming pool section, and they're still going side by side through the chicane, but Magnussen will try and get it up the inside into Raskas, and considering Monaco you can't overtake round here apparently, these two have had a great battle. So brilliant move from Kevin Magnussen to take the position from Sergio Perez, and luckily for George Russell his mistake didn't cost him the position. At the end of lap 7 now, we're going to box, as we have finally lost DRS again from Ricardo, and it was our scheduled lap to go in for the 2-stop. So hopefully, if we do rejoin in traffic, which we probably will do, we can make the moves so that we can come out ahead of Daniel Ricciardo when he pits in about 3 laps time for his 1 stop. It's quite a slow stop, it's a 2.8, so it's not the end of the world, but we'll see where we come out, and Stroll and Albon look like they're going to come out just in front of us, and we're going to rejoin between Albon and Norris, and hopefully those two will not hold us up, as Norris is just right behind us. But Albon will now try and defend from us, but we're going to need to make a move shortly, so we're going to dive it up the inside into Lewis hairpin and take the position as quick as possible, as this car just is so much quicker than the others, and Stroll doesn't get a good run through the chicane, and that means we're going to try and go round the outside into Raskas, and there's slight warning with the collision on the exit that we had. We just got a so much better run, and we made 2 positions on that lap, and as we head on to lap 9 we're now up into P6, have Sebastian Vettel right in front of us, and for some reason we didn't get an illegal overtake there, so I just kept the position. I outwrote myself and was like, I'll probably have to take a warning, but no, the game was like, no, you kept it on the track, so we've just overtaken Vettel for free. And now the Williams car, I think this is a side of Nick DeVries of Jack Aitken, is now being overtaken by Antonio Giovinazzi, as he also made a mistake going into the tunnel. But as we move on towards the end of the lap, we are catching up to Lewis Hamilton, Charles Leclerc and Valtteri Bottas, which was at the fastest lap of the race. So we're on course to be able to undercut Daniel Ricciardo, but we don't want to get held up by these guys, so we dive up the inside of Lewis Hamilton to the Lewis hairpin. Now we only have Leclerc and Bottas just in front of us, and hopefully we'll be able to clear them very shortly. And as we head towards the end of the tunnel section, we're going to have a look at Leclerc, and we do make a slight bit of contact. I didn't mean to push past him, but I did in the end. And now we're going to have Valtteri Bottas just in front of us, and we get a better run through the swimming pool chicane, and we're going to go around the outside of Valtteri Bottas. So 3 moves on this lap as he now comes into the pits, but we're now up to P2 and we're definitely in Ricciardo's pit range, so hopefully we can undercut him. On board with the AlphaTauri of Pierre Gasly here, and he is going to go for a move on the Williams car by the side of him as Bottas comes out of the pits ahead of him. So for him, that was a good opportunistic move, and he moves up a position. Now on the end of lap 11 we set another fastest lap, and on lap 12 we set another fastest lap as Ricciardo pits and comes out behind us. Importantly, he also comes out behind Charles Leclerc, so now he has an overtake that he has to make at some point until Leclerc pits from his medium tyres. So we're just going to try and keep extending the gap, and we're going to need to make it as big as possible, because obviously it's not easy to overtake around here. Obviously we didn't find it that difficult to overtake some of the slower cars, and Lewis Hamilton doesn't seem to be finding it that difficult to overtake Antonio Giovinazzi here as he heads round the outside into Rascasse and is ahead when he goes into Anson Nose. So a good move from him, and we haven't seen that many overtakes so far this race, but a few good ones when we have. As we fast forward through the laps, we are extending the gap, and the gap is around 15 seconds and 16 seconds at the end of lap 18, and we just want Leclerc to stay out for as long as possible, but eventually he does pit, and now the gap is 16.7 seconds to Ricciardo, and we just need to try and keep gaining it. And as we head through turn 1, we will now lap Carlos Sainz, who is having a poor race in his McLaren down in P90. Almost gets in the way there. It wasn't the greatest let through that I've ever seen, and it was a bit of work for us to do, as Ricciardo is now starting to gain back in on us as we overtake a few more cars while lapping them. And I realise by now that when Ricciardo starts gaining us as well, as much as we're gaining back up again, I keep checking front wing, and I think we do have a slight bit of damage, and we're not gaining enough on Ricciardo to be able to come out ahead of him. So as we start lapping some more cars, we're probably going to change the front wing in the pit stop, because then we'll have some more pace and should have a better chance of overtaking Ricciardo when we have the opportunity, as Ricciardo has again closed in the gap on us. So at the end of lap 23 we are going to come into the pits, and we have left repair and damage on auto, which means it should get fixed, as we do have a little bit of damage. I think it might have just been brushing the wall a few times. I don't think there was anything major why I got the damage, but we do change the front wing, and we will come out just behind Ricciardo. So obviously we're losing 4 seconds in the pit stop time, and we're going to come out just over 4 seconds behind Ricciardo. So we'd have probably been about 6 tenths behind him. Otherwise, obviously we had a 6 second pit stop. You'd have expected a 2 second pit stop normally without the front wing change, but that wasn't to be. So on the next lap we lap Jack Aitken, and the gap is still around 5 seconds to Ricciardo, and we, by the end of the lap, have pulled it down to about 4 seconds as we lap Pierre Gasly, and now we're going to lap Nick de Vries in the other Williams, but he really holds us up going into the final corner, and I thought he could have done a much better job of letting us through there, but we do at the end of lap 25 set another fastest lap with 3 purple sectors. It's a 109.5, and at the end of lap 26 we are on the back of Daniel Ricciardo, and now we're going to try and follow him up the hill, but I'm not sure we're going to be able to make a move through here. And as we have a quick look up the inside of the Lowe's hairpin, but Ricciardo has the line, and he is able to hold on to the position, so we can't find a way through. And as we head through the tunnel, we're too far back to send a dive into the Nouvelle chicane, so we're just going to have to stick behind for a bit longer. And now we're going to head through the swimming pool section, and we do get a better run than Ricciardo slightly, and we're going to try and send it slightly around the outside of Rascasse. So now we have a better line as we head through Anthony Nose, still side by side here, but it doesn't seem like we're quite going to have enough to go around the outside, so we're going to try and go for a little switchback here, and we do make our way through into turn 1 as Ricciardo's obviously pinched to the inside line. I think he slightly outbroke himself, and that allowed us to take the lead of the Grand Prix. Now as we lap some more cars, backing up to Carlos Sainz again, who seems to have broken his front wing or something by hitting the wall. I'm not sure what he did there, but we're going to continue going through, and we're just going to hopefully extend the gap as much as possible. And now Nicholas Latifi, not really letting us through, and we make a bit of contact with him, so the lap traffic has been quite disruptive so far this race, and we're just trying to make our way through it as we now have Perez and Magnussen coming up next. And we're going to see how many cars we can lap, as we've already extended the gap to 3.5 seconds over Daniel Ricciardo. Magnussen lets us through just about. I thought for a second he was going to close the door on us, and I'm quite worried with these AI as Russell is up next, and again he does that thing that Sainz did where he just decides to hit the wall on the outside to let us through, and it's quite a dangerous spot to let us through, because he could just let us through going into Ascas, but sort of tries to let us through on the exit. Fiat just gets out of the way on the main straights, and now it's Albon's turn to let us through, and we're up to P11 of all the cars we've lapped, and coming up to Esteban Ocon now, who's just inside the points. So we head through the swimming pool section. He will, like Russell and Sainz, just hit the outside wall for no reason. But his is quite serious, and as you see, he pulls off into the pits because he damaged his front wing from doing it. So he's just cost himself a point in this race by driving off into the wall. Now coming up to lap Grosjean, who is currently running in P9 in this Grand Prix. So it does look like Hasselby will be able to get some points in this race, as Grosjean is up there in P9, and we'll see if he can hold on to that position. It is quite hard to overtake round here. And we're going to catch up to Lance Stroll as well, who's currently running in P8, and try and lap him as well. And our team has dominated this Grand Prix. Like, Leclerc's currently in 3rd, and he's 40 seconds behind us. So it has been a good showing for how quick our car can be. And Mercedes' race pace, they generally looked good in qualifying over the last few races, but their race pace has not been good since China when they went on the one stop. Now we're going to catch up to Vettel and Bottas here, who I never thought at this point in the season we were going to be about to lap a Mercedes. So, as we catch up to Valtteri Bottas, it's maybe our first opportunity to do so, and he's not had a great race. He's down in 6th, so it's not even like a terrible position. Usually if you thought, oh, you're lapping Mercedes, it's probably because they've had a terrible race and they're not in the points. But no, he's in 6th. And it just shows that our car is now completely dominant, and we should be able to win this championship with at least one of our drivers. Bottas is taking his time to let us through, but on the exit of the tunnel, he is going to let us through. If he had gone a bit further, it would have been quite hard, as he had to slow down in the actual point of turning. As we head towards the end of lap 34, the gap to Ricciardo is about 10 seconds now, but there isn't really anyone else more to lap. Verstappen and Hamilton are still about 15 seconds away if I was to try and lap them, and I'm not going to be able to do that in the next few laps, so it's just about trying to drive on for the rest of the race. And I do think I've broken my front wing slightly again. I've got a slight bit of damage. I think it's yellow again. I think I must have made some contact with one of the lapped cars. I've probably made contact with quite a few of them because they didn't let me through, but now we've broken even more as we've spun ourselves round. And on the penultimate lap, we spun it on the exit of the Newville chicane, and now we have a lap to last with an orange front right wing. So now we just have to survive, and I think I'm gonna just leave the lap on, as we're gonna try and see how the gap comes down to Ricciardo, which is still at about 10 seconds, but he'll surely be gaining at pretty much every possible corner, and hopefully we can just about hold on to this race victory. The gap had been over a minute to Hamilton and Verstappen, but I think it's not going to be that come the end of the race, as we try and slow it down for Lowe's hairpin. But you can clearly see we're struggling with our downforce levels. Ricardo's already got the gap down to 9 seconds, so he's getting a second in the first sector. But that isn't enough for him, and we should just about be able to hold on for this race victory, as we just don't have the downforce to turn into the next corner, so we have to take a warning there. But it was our first of the race, so it won't make too much of a difference. And as we head through the swimming pool chicane, the gap is still at around 9 seconds. We'll go deep into Rascasse, but Ricciardo doesn't seem to be able to make anything of it, and despite the fact that now I've realised we're going to run out of fuel, and we do run out of fuel before the line, we are still going to cross the line, and we are still going to win the Monaco Grand Prix.
This round of the World Championship, here's how things look in the drivers' table. Thomas increases their championship lead. Some amazing talents out on the track today. But Anthony, who would you pick as your driver of the day?
Often my go-to would be a driver who's managed to pull off an especially impressive feat during the race. However, in this instance, I was more impressed by Max Verstappen's solid, clean driving throughout the event.
It's time to check out the constructors' standings. The current leaders continue to extend their lead at the top. There was also a strong showing from the McLaren team today as they make their way up the standings. It's been an absolutely wild weekend of Formula One action. I can't wait to see what's next.
So we do end up winning the Grand Prix despite our late scare. 7.5 seconds ahead of Daniel Ricciardo, who did gain quite a bit in that final sector when we ran out of fuel. Charles Leclerc takes home his second podium of the season for Ferrari, finishing third and 45 seconds behind us in first, but he won't mind, it's on the podium. Verstappen finishes fourth, just ahead of Hamilton, who finishes in fifth, and then every other driver on the grid is lapped at least once. Bottas is sixth, Vettel seventh, Stroll 8th, and Grosjean holds on to his points that he will claim for Haas, their first points since, well, they didn't get any last season, so for quite a long time, in 9th, and then Alex Albon finishes the point section in 10th. George Russell can't quite claim any points in P11, so he still hasn't got any points yet in his career in this save. And Kvyat is the lead AlphaTauri. He started obviously inside the top 10, but couldn't claim any points this race for him, with Pierre Gasly finishing even lower down. Magnussen is then the lead Alfa Romeo, who finished P13. He still hasn't scored any points this season, but he has been close to points in quite a few races, like at Spain he missed out by a position and a lap or something. But I think they will come at some point for Magnussen. Perez is the lead Renault in 14th position, and Nicholas Latifi is the other Alfa Romeo in 15th, and Esteban Ocon on the 2-stop after him, having to make another pit stop for damage and costing him points, now finishes 16th. Sainz is the highest placed McLaren in 17th, so a not good day for McLaren, and Giovinazzi is 18th in his racing points. Pierre Gasly finishes 19th in his AlphaTauri, and Nick De Vries is 20th in the Williams, beating Lando Norris, who voluntarily went for the 2-stop in 21st, and Jack Aitken completes every driver finishing in the final position. We now lead the championship by 46 points over Daniel Ricciardo, who is a further 30 points ahead of Valtteri Bottas in third. Lance Stroll is holding on to his 4th place on 60 points, 4 points ahead of Lewis Hamilton, and 10 points ahead of Max Verstappen, who are both trying to close him down. Charles Leclerc has moved up to 7th with the second podium of the season on 46 points, and Lando Norris stays 8th, for him obviously having a podium in Spain. Giovinazzi is 9th, and Pierre Gasly is 10th. Big gap between those two. Giovinazzi 16 points ahead. Sergio Perez is then 11th, same points as Pierre Gasly, with Alex Albon 2 points behind them, and Esteban Ocon and Sebastian Vettel a further 2 points behind them. Then there's the gap to Danny Kvyat of 6 points, as he is 15th and not yet to get a good score on the board. Same with Romain Grosjean, who's now ahead of Sainz in the championship. So Sainz really not able to get a good score on the board either, with him only having 2 points this season, and then the remaining drivers are yet to score. In the constructors, we have a 139 point lead over Mercedes, who have a 55 point lead over Racing Point, who are in turn 28 points ahead of Red Bull. Red Bull are being closed in on by Ferrari though, who are only 6 points behind them, and McLaren are then 9 points ahead of Renault for 6th place in their battle. AlphaTauri are a solid 8th, but haven't really posed a threat yet, but in the coming races maybe they can get some more points, and Haas have taken a big leap toward that 9th place with getting their first points on the board.
Let's have yours. Did you have the wrong fuel strategy today, or was it your management?
When I had the incident on the penultimate lap, it cost me quite a bit of fuel because obviously I had to turn the car round and keep it going, and I miscalculated and forgot to save on the final lap.
How does it feel to have both cars in your team take the top spots?
Great. It was good to dominate the weekend in Monaco, and it's been great for the whole team to have a car that's able to do this.
Will you be celebrating with them tonight?
Yeah, of course we'll be celebrating. We won the race by about 40 seconds as a team, so it was good to finish so far ahead of the pack.
Great. Well, that's everything.
So, in the rivalry against Valtteri Bottas, well, we lapped Bottas, so I think you should get some extra points for that, but apparently the game disagrees and it's only going to give you the normal set of points. But for the acclaim levels, we're still level 13 with Ricciardo level 14, and the team goes up to level 17. So, a good win out and a good weekend in Monaco, which has increased our acclaim level. We also met all our goals that set by the teams, but we did have a few damage deductions for our car, 22k, based on our failures in qualifying and our front wing damage in the race. But our total is up to 13.41 million, which should be enough to re-sign Ricciardo when his contract runs out. But that will be the end of the episode, and I'll see you guys next time for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix.